we have the final 20 minutes for the chairman's report. Chair recognizes the chairman of the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee, Chairman Alan Powell. Chairman Powell, just a moment, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen. You know, this is a great thing about our process. You know, this is the third time we have, in the last two sessions that we've gone through this. And, you know, a lot of the debate today didn't sound a whole lot different than it did last year. You know, last year, and I'm going to digress a little bit and go back to last year, House Bill 512, Senate Bill 101. This year, it's 825. But last year, the Public Safety Committee did an outstanding job. I mean, even the ones members of the committee that voted against it last year and did so again this year, at least ways they showed that the process worked. You know, this is not an easy issue. You know, I listened to some of the folks who came up here and they spoke in opposition, and you know, they're speaking from their heart. Yeah, it might be a partisan position that they took, because I think the minority caucus has staked it out as a caucus position. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I see some nods that they didn't. But it just seems that way. But you know, I heard all the negatives that have been talked about. But let me tell you about this bill. I mean, there's some things that we're never going to agree with. But what this bill has done, it is a multitude of issues, and it's not expanding your Second Amendment rights, because quite frankly, I don't know how you can expand a right that is given to you by the Constitution. To me, this is more about restoring your right, or it's more about protecting your rights, and it's not expanding anything. It's doing what you've been guaranteed by the Constitution. Now, we had a lot of hands that were involved in this since last year. The committee members, I can't say enough good words about the members of the Public Safety Committee. I mean, they sat through a lot of meetings last year, probably 18 hours or more last year in hearings. This year wasn't near as many hours, but still a good many meetings, and a lot of time was spent as we did a lot of cleanup language, working with Representative Jaspers and Chairman Meadows and others. And you know, it was about making the process easier, less government intrusion, things like you know, eliminating the requirements, the redundancy of fingerprint requirements on a renewal process. Last year, Chairman Battles had a bill last year, and I heard some negatives about the schools and some of this stuff that was passed out on your desk today. You know, Chairman Battles and the committee did an outstanding job last year. There's nothing that says that boards of education have got to arm personnel in schools. It says they may, and it sets a criteria out there that if they do, these are the things that you will do. That it'll be on a volunteer basis, that you'll have a training course, that, you know, there'll be all of those things. But it's not like putting people loose in the schools, but it says that they may. And then, you know, the airport language. You know, I heard some of the emails and some of the rhetoric about the airport language. Well, you know, we're all up here every year to try to create fairness in our codes and in the law. And, you know, we saw a situation for years that people make mistakes. I see one of those many pieces of propaganda put out on your desk today. It says that the Georgia debates and leniency over guns brought to airports. Well, it clearly states in here about some guy who had a weapon in his heavy coat that he carried with him to ward off coyotes or whatever when he was walking. It went to the airport and they locked him up because he got there. Well, you know, we proved last year, and it was testified last year, that no other airport in no other state is as difficult as Georgia has been over the years. You know, you go in and, you know, you have made a mistake. You're not criminally, intentionally bringing a weapon in an airport. But once notified, instead of telling you to leave the airport and take the weapon out, then it was lock you up for 24 straight hours in the Clayton County Jail. You know, you go through the dog and pony show that went on at that time for a misdemeanor, and then they let it sort of slide by after they got your fine. Well, you know, we do recognize that people make mistakes. That's what that section of the bill does. The bill goes on, but it deals with some of the mental health issues. It deals with just a lot of good issues, probably 10 or 12 good issues in this bill. But there's nothing in there that's a requirement to the churches or the bars. It says that you can take your weapon. But let me tell you something. One of the things this bill has been very careful to do, and we've been very careful in the crafting, is that while we believe in the Second Amendment, we also believe that your Second Amendment ends where your neighbor's 10th Amendment to private property rights begins. Be assured of that. Yes, you can carry that weapon if you're a licensee to a church, but if that church or that house of God says we don't allow weapons in whatever method or manner that they wish to express that, then you don't have to carry it. You can't carry it. Then you're violating the law. So the Second Amendment right prevails, but the 10th Amendment right trumps that when it comes to private property. For a lot of the folks in here, there's been a lot of misinformation. I had my secretary sent me a text a while ago wanting to know if people really read the bill, when something had been said about the illusion of campus carry. Well, let me tell you, we struck the campus carry. Not because we wanted to. We passed it out twice last year. But we struck it because of the overwhelming power, the political power of the Board of Regents. They did not want this, so at this time we realized that we licked our wounds from last year and we backed up. There's no campus carry in this bill. It's not in there. So if you think it is, you're fooling yourself. Or as what I will also say about to a lot of my friends. Last year, as I stood in this very well on the same issue, I heard the folks last year say, oh yeah, we're Second Amendments. I'm all about my Second Amendment rights. I support my Second Amendment rights, but I can't vote for it because of the campus carry. This year, the negative is, and the excuse is, oh, I can't vote for it because of bars or because of churches. Well, let me tell you something. Churches can tell you not to go. You can't bring that into a church. Bars, I'm not even sure how many bars there are anymore. Most of them are food service establishments that sells alcohol. And quite frankly, I've seen a whole lot more people incapacitated at a restaurant than I have a bar, because I don't see many bars anymore. I'm not like my friend from South Georgia. I still frequent occasionally. But you know, I don't carry a gun into them, because if I felt like I had to carry a gun just like a church, I'd probably find me another one to frequent. But that's just the way it is. But that still doesn't take anything back from your rights. To all the people that had testified, you know, you had some, a lot of lame excuses. You know, I see there's something put out by the ACLU that says that if we pass 875, that this is going to be an expansion of the school to prison pipeline. That sort of defies me, folks. That defies me. I guess they're grasping for issues out there. There's one on your desk from the ministerial group, the Coalition Against Gun Violence. Let me tell you something. I don't make fun of these ministers. When these ministers come forward, that's their duty to look after our souls and to pray for a better day. There's nothing worse than gun violence, I can assure you of that. But there's a reason for the Second Amendment. You have that right. You have that right to protect yourself. That's the bottom line. It's guaranteed by the Constitution. I can understand who folks, a lot of the people who spoke here this afternoon, you know, they were opposed to this and they were opposed to that. And you know, the guy that runs the drugstore, if he doesn't want to keep a weapon in his drugstore or in his home, God bless him. You know, I was in business for many years in the retail business. And as long as I was in business, I always had a gun in that store. 35 years of running a retail operation, never had the first armed robbery. The day I sold that business and they decided the people who were running it said they didn't want to have a weapon in there, they got held up. So, you know, I'm not telling you that it's the right thing to do, but I am telling you that there's a reason that that you are guaranteed that right. If you don't like your constitutional right, if you don't believe in it, then I suggest that you start a movement to change the Constitution, if that's what your desires and your wishes are. But you know, no excuses. You have a Second Amendment. If you don't want to live by it, if you want to live in fear, if you want to conjure up every kind of answer that you can, then that's what you need to do. That's what a lot of what we heard here today. We heard a lot of good people in here today that were talking about the issues. But let me tell you, don't talk about play the politics and talk about how much you're in favor and a supporter of the Second Amendment if you're voting against this bill. Because this bill is a good, logical, sound bill. Worked on by a lot of your colleagues in this House, worked on by a lot of your citizens out there that brought the issue up, by several of the pro-Second Amendment groups, NRA, Georgia Carry. I mean, a lot of people put a lot of time into this, ladies and gentlemen. Some of the negatives that were put out, you know, kind of false. You know, I heard my good friend, the minority leader, talk about the right of action. Well, you know, to tell you the truth, we do have cities and counties that tend to go overboard a little at times. So if they go overboard, should you not be able to file litigation to restore your right? Citizens, individual citizens, don't have the resources that cities and counties have with city attorneys and county attorneys on staff. So that's the threat that keeps that out there. You know, I heard the property rights issues. You know, I've refuted that, because if you look through this bill everywhere, private property rights trumps anything else in here. Just a multitude of issues. And then I can't even start to answer my good friend Al Williams. You know, there's not a whole lot you can say about Al. Al puts levity into every issue, no matter how serious it is. But ladies and gentlemen, I will tell you that this is a very serious issue. You know, I don't subscribe to the fact that everybody needs to have a weapon. I do subscribe to the belief that it is your right to have a weapon if you qualify that you're not a criminal. I do believe that it is your right to defend yourself or your family. I believe in God Almighty and His Son, Jesus Christ. But I will tell you that if somebody kicks the door down in my house, I hope that the good Lord has provided me with some kind of a weapon to protect myself or my family. I would encourage the members of this House to vote for this bill. I would encourage the members in this House who have spoken against the bill to reconsider your thoughts on this, because this is a positive bill. There's an amendment that I've introduced on the airport language. It quite simply just spells out the process a little bit better, that if you go into an airport unknowingly with a weapon, and then you're caught at the checkout point before you go into the restricted area, if they detect that weapon and if they tell you to leave, then you leave the airport. Take your weapon and leave the airport. If you don't take that weapon and leave the airport, then you'll be prosecuted. So ladies and gentlemen, that's quite simply what's there. I would encourage you to look this bill over and see the wisdom in this. Mr. Speaker, I will yield the well and ask for the favorable consideration of the members.
Gentleman has yielded the balance of his time. Shall this bill now pass? All those in favor of the passage of House Bill 875 will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine on the passage of House Bill 875. The ayes are 119, the nays are 56. This bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed.